Qatar is one of the least populated countries in the whole world, but that doesn't stop them from gaining OP status on the world stage. The peninsular Arab country is home to 2.6 million people, and most of them are foreign immigrants. In fact, only about 320,000 people living there are citizens. Even though the country is mostly an arid desert, it's developed extremely well. After all, it has over $450 billion in assets, and Qatar is putting it to good use. On top of this, Qatar has had the highest GDP per capita in the world for several years, making it one of the most rapidly developing economies of modern times. Real estate portfolio. Considering the massive amount of wealth concentrated in Qatar, it's no surprise that the country is one of the richest in the world. It has more investments than anyone could possibly imagine, such as an extensively impressive real estate portfolio. In fact, the country owns the most properties in all of London, including a 95% stake in the tallest building in Western Europe, the Shard, along with a 20% stake in Heathrow Airport, one of the busiest airports in the whole entire world. Qatar has also invested in luxury hotels across Europe, such as Le Meurice and the Plaza Athénée in Paris. Other investments. When we're talking about Qatar, it's impossible not to mention the infamous state-owned Qatar Airways, which is one of the most influential and prestigious airlines in the whole world. Its first-class flights are the best in the world, and it's easy to see why. The state-owned airline is also ranked as the third best airline of 2023. That's not where Qatar's investments end, though. Having OP status doesn't come easy, and Qatar has spent years cultivating it. You might not know this, but Qatar also owns Al Jazeera, one of the biggest media conglomerates in the whole world. Oil and gas reserves discovery. The Qatar we know today hasn't always been this way, though. Before becoming one of the wealthiest states in the whole world, Qatar was just a small, underdeveloped country in the Arabian Gulf. Nobody thought much of it until its vast natural gas and oil reserves were discovered in the middle of the 20th century. Before this oil and gas-powered economic boom, the economy in Qatar depended on fishing, pearl diving, and agriculture. The tiny population had a relatively low standard of living along with an incredibly limited infrastructure. Thanks to the discovery of oil and gas in the 1940s, Qatar's fortunes changed dramatically. Not long after the initial discovery, the country's government made sure to capitalize off of it. They quickly invested the billions of dollars earned in infrastructure, healthcare, education, and other important sectors. These investments, along with Qatar's rapid economic growth, are what make it a global economic and political player, known for its modern cities, world-class infrastructure, and diplomatic initiatives. This transformation has elevated Qatar's status into one which has considerable global influence, which is clearly seen in its roles in international politics and finance. Oil reserves history. Qatar's oil reserves and their discovery is an important part of their history. The initial exploration began in the 1940s, around the same time that the Second World War started. A team of geologists from the Anglo-Persian Oil Company discovered oil in the Dukhan field in western Qatar thanks to exploratory surveys. This was the beginning of Qatar's journey in the oil industry. Soon after this, the Qatar Petroleum Company was granted an oil concession to explore and extract oil in the region. Exploration continued, and more oil fields were discovered across the country, both on and off the shore. Amsaid and Idd al-Shargi are just a few of them. Fast forward a few years, Qatar finally gained independence from the British in 1971, and not long after, started the journey of nationalizing its oil industry. 5 years after independence, Qatar Petroleum was launched to manage the oil and gas resources in the country. This was a brilliant idea, because now QP could take control over the industry, instead of foreign giants trying to sweep in. This gave Qatar more sovereignty over its own resources. Gas reserves history. As for national gas discoveries, in the 1970s, Qatar also discovered vast natural gas reserves in the North Field, one of the world's largest, and transformed Qatar into a global leader in the liquefied natural gas. LNG industry. All this happened thanks to Qatar and Shell's cooperation. Thanks to them, one of the largest discoveries in the geologic world was made. This was in 1971, when a huge offshore field of natural gas was found in the middle of the Persian Gulf. It is split between and power. Qatar's side of the reserve came to be known as the North Field, the largest natural gas field ever discovered in the world. To put into perspective how big this field is, the Qatari side alone contains over a fifth of the entire world's natural gas reserves. The discovery of this reserve changed Qatar's destiny forever. Almost overnight, Qatar was catapulted into being #3 in the whole world when it comes to natural gas reserves. This is just behind Iran and Russia, and double the amount discovered all across the United States. In just a few decades, Qatar achieved OP status on the world stage, something nobody could have predicted just a few years ago. Some might say that Qatar got really lucky, especially because of the way the natural gas industry changed in the 90s. The demand for it increased, especially because of countries seeking more sustainable methods of producing energy. Not to mention, after over 2 whole decades of research and development in the LNG industry, the cost of building LNG infrastructure had gone down dramatically. The timing of the discovery couldn't have been more perfect for Qatar. Economic transformation. In 1995, the son of the Qatari emir planned and executed a coup d'etat against his father and succeeded. Under Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani's leadership, Qatar was transformed into a global superpower. He believed in the potential of the natural gas reserves of the country, and soon enough started pushing for its development. His government actively invested in the development and expansion of Qatar's LNG infrastructure. Qatar's natural gas reserves, particularly the North Field, were a valuable resource, and Sheikh Hamad's leadership saw the realization of several major LNG projects, including Qatargas and Rasgas, which significantly boosted the country's export capacity. These LNG companies were backed by billions of dollars in investments, which came through partnerships with energy companies from around the world. Qatar saw the opportunity to collaborate with major players in the global energy players like ExxonMobil, Royal Dutch Shell, Total, and ConocoPhillips, and went for it. All of these joint ventures eventually led to the development and export of LNG. Soon, Qatar became one of the largest and most competitive LNG businesses in the world. These partnerships helped the country to become a global leader in the LNG industry, along with transforming it into one of the world's wealthiest nations and a key player in the global energy market. You can't ignore the fact that Sheikh Hamad's leadership and strategic investments in the LNG sector are what led to Qatar's rapid economic growth and its emergence as a major player in the global energy landscape. Thanks to his policies, billions of dollars started pouring into Qatar internationally. Other investments. While Sheikh Hamad's main focus was the LNG industry, he also knew that it was risky for Qatar to rely so heavily on one stream of income. And so, the LNG-powered state decided to look into some strategic investments in order to diversify its streams of income. Take its multi-billion-dollar real estate portfolio as an example. The Qatari government invested in many businesses all over the world and worked towards developing its energy resources, infrastructure, and downstream industries. They founded Qatar Airways in 1993, and thanks to the oil and gas money, this airline quickly skyrocketed and became one of the top 10 in the world. They also founded what would become one of the largest media conglomerates in the world, Al Jazeera, in 1996. The Qataris didn't stop there, though. They covered all their bases, and as a result, today they have investments all over the world. This is exactly the kind of proactive approach that has made Qatar a significant global player in both the oil and gas sectors, along with various others. In addition to fostering economic success, its oil and gas deposits have influenced the country's international diplomacy, economic diversification, and general metamorphosis into a powerful worldwide force. That's all for how Qatar skyrocketed to OP status. Stay tuned for more.